Chapter 1. The breaking point, the engagement ring felt heavy on my finger, heavier than it should have been for something so delicate. I twisted it absently as I stood outside the pack house, watching through the window as Marcus laughed with her. Vivian. Beautiful, poised, perfect Vivian, whose bloodline stretched back 7 generations of pure wolf heritage, unlike mine, which had none. Sarah. My best friend Lila's hand touched my shoulder. You don't have to go in there, but I did, because tonight was the autumn gathering, and Marcus had promised, sworn to me 3 months ago when he'd placed this ring on my finger, that he would announce our engagement to the pack, that he would fight for us, even though I was human, even though his father, Beta Cornelius, had forbidden it. He loves me, I whispered, trying to convince myself as much as Lila. He'll choose me. Lila's silence said everything her words didn't. I smoothed down my dress, a deep green that Marcus once said, matched my eyes, and walked through the doors. The pack house was filled with warmth and laughter. Wolves from 3 neighboring territories gathered for the celebration. I'd been to dozens of these events over the past 2 years, always on Marcus's arm, always the odd one out. The human girlfriend he couldn't quite commit to. Marcus saw me immediately. Something flickered across his face, guilt, fear, before he plastered on a smile and crossed the room. Sarah, you look beautiful. He kissed my cheek, but his body was tense. Are you ready? I asked quietly, hope and dread warring in my chest. His jaw tightened. Can we talk? Outside? The hope died. I followed him onto the back terrace, the October air crisp with the promise of winter. Music and laughter drifted from inside, a cruel soundtrack to what I knew was coming. I can't do this, Marcus said, not meeting my eyes. My father, the pack, they won't accept a human Luna. You said it didn't matter. My voice cracked. You said you'd fight for us. I thought I could. He finally looked at me, and I saw the truth. He wasn't being forced. He was choosing this. But Vivian, her family's alliance would strengthen our position. And she understands this world, Sarah. You never will. I've tried to understand. I've learned your customs, attended every pack event. It's not enough. His voice rose, then fell. You're not enough. You'll never be one of us, and I can't build a life with someone who doesn't belong in my world. Each word was a blade, cutting deeper than the last. I pulled the ring off my finger with shaking hands. Then I guess there's nothing left to say. Sarah, don't. I pressed the ring into his palm. Just don't. I walked back through the pack house, head high even as tears blurred my vision. Conversation stopped as I passed. They knew. Of course they knew. This had probably been decided weeks ago, and I was the last to hear about it. Lila caught up with me in the parking lot. Where will you go? I don't know. I fumbled for my keys. Away, anywhere but here. My mom's cabin. Lila grabbed my hands. Up in the Cascades. She left it to me, but I haven't been there in years. It's remote, quiet. No cell service, no pack politics, just peace. Lila, I can't. Yes, you can. She pressed a key into my hand. Go, Sarah. Heal, and forget Marcus ever existed. 3 hours later, I was driving up a mountain road with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes and a heart shattered into so many pieces I wasn't sure it would ever be whole again. Marcus's words echoed in my head. You're not enough. You'll never be one of us. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd been fooling myself, thinking I could bridge 2 worlds that were never meant to touch. The cabin appeared through the trees just as the sun was setting. A small, weathered structure that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. I parked and sat in the silence, letting the weight of the day finally crash over me. I'd lost everything. My relationship, my home, Marcus's apartment, I realized bitterly. My place in the only community I'd known for 2 years. All because I was human, because I wasn't born with wolf blood running through my veins. The unfairness of it burned. I grabbed my bag and headed inside. The cabin was dusty but charming, with a stone fireplace and windows overlooking dense forest. On the mantel, I found a photo of Lila's grandmother, a woman with kind eyes and silver hair, holding a bundle of herbs. Next to it was a leather journal. I picked it up, flipping through pages filled with handwriting and sketches, recipes for herbal remedies, notes about the forest, and then an entry that made me pause. They are not what they seem. The wolves in these mountains carry ancient magic, older than the packs that claim these territories. Beware the silver-eyed ones. They answer to no beta, no council, only to their own wild law. I shivered despite myself. Just stories, old folklore from a woman who'd lived alone too long. But as darkness fell and I lit a fire against the October chill, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been running from one impossible world only to stumble into another. Outside, something howled, deep and resonant and far too close. I moved to the window, peering into the darkness. 2 points of light glimmered between the trees. Eyes, watching, then they were gone. I locked every door and window, my heart racing. This was fine. I was fine, just wolves. Normal, ordinary wolves. But as I lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the sounds of the forest, Marcus's rejection felt like the least of my problems. Something was out there in the darkness, and it knew I was here. Chapter 2. Blood in the Rain. I woke to the sound of rain hammering against the roof like 1,000 desperate fingers. The cabin was dark except for the dying embers in the fireplace, casting orange shadows that danced across the walls. According to my phone, barely clinging to 5% battery, it was just past 3 a.m. The storm had come from nowhere, transforming the peaceful mountain night into something wild and furious. I pulled the quilt tighter around my shoulders and padded to the window. Rain sheeted down in torrents, turning the forest into a blur of darkness and movement. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the trees in stark white relief. And something else. A shape, massive and dark, moving through the downpour toward the cabin. My breath caught. Too big to be a deer, too deliberate in its movements to be a bear. The lightning flashed again, and this time I saw it clearly. A wolf, enormous and black as midnight, limping badly as it struggled through the storm. Even from this distance, I could see the blood. Every rational thought screamed at me to stay inside, to lock the door and pretend I'd seen nothing. This wasn't my problem. I'd come here to escape, to heal, to be alone. But I watched that wolf collapse 20 feet from the porch, and something in my chest twisted painfully. Marcus's voice echoed in my head. You're not enough. Maybe not. But I was enough to help something that was dying in the rain. I grabbed Lila's mother's first aid kit from under the sink, thank God for paranoid mountain dwellers, and threw on my jacket. The wind nearly ripped the door from my hands as I stepped outside. Rain soaked through my clothes in seconds, cold and shocking. The wolf lifted its head as I approached, and I froze. Its eyes were silver, not the yellow gold of normal wolves, not even amber, pure metallic silver that seemed to glow with their own light. They fixed on me with an intensity that stole my breath, intelligent and aware in a way that made my skin prickle. Beware the silver-eyed ones. Easy, I called over the storm, my voice shaking. I'm going to help you. The wolf's lip curled, revealing teeth that could tear me apart without effort. But it didn't growl, didn't try to move away, just watched me with those impossible eyes as I knelt in the mud beside it. The wounds were horrific, 3 deep gashes across its shoulder, still bleeding freely. Claw marks, I realized with growing dread. Something with massive claws had done this. What happened to you? I whispered. The wolf made a sound, something between a whimper and a growl that I felt in my bones. Its eyes flickered closed, then forced themselves open again, as if it was fighting to stay conscious. I'd taken wilderness first aid courses during my time with Marcus's pack, though I'd never imagined using them on a wild animal. My hands moved on autopilot, cleaning the wounds as best I could with antiseptic from the kit. The wolf didn't flinch, didn't snap, just kept those silver eyes locked on my face. You're not going to make it out here, I said, more to myself than the animal. And I can't get you down the mountain in this storm. The decision was insane. Reckless. Potentially. Suicidal. I wrapped my arms around the wolf's massive body and pulled. It was like trying to move a boulder. Pure muscle and wet fur, easily 170 pounds. The wolf helped where it could, struggling to its feet with a sound of pain that made my heart clench. Together, we staggered toward the cabin. The porch steps were the worst. The wolf's legs nearly gave out, and I had to support most of its weight as we climbed. By the time we collapsed through the door, I was shaking with exhaustion, my arms screaming in protest. I dragged the wolf close to the fire and built up the flames, then really looked at my patient in the light. Its coat was midnight black with that strange silver sheen threaded through like starlight. Even injured and exhausted, it was beautiful, powerful and wild in a way that made something in my chest ache. I worked quickly, cleaning the wounds properly, applying antiseptic that should have burned but elicited no reaction. The wolf just watched me, those silver eyes tracking every movement with an awareness that was deeply unsettling. "You understand me, don't you?" I whispered. The wolf blinked slowly. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with my wet clothes. This wasn't a normal animal. Whatever was bleeding on Lila's grandmother's rug was something else entirely. The wolves in these mountains carry ancient magic. I wrapped the wounds with gauze, my hands steadier than they should have been. "You're going to be okay," I said, though I had no idea if that was true. "Just rest." The wolf's eyes finally closed, its breathing evening out into something that might have been sleep. I sat back on my heels, reality crashing over me. I'd just brought a massive wolf into the cabin, a wounded predator that could kill me the moment it woke up. But as I watched its chest rise and fall, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. The storm raged outside. Inside, warmth from the fire slowly seeped back into my frozen limbs. I changed into dry clothes and settled into the armchair, unable to sleep, unable to look away from the creature I'd saved. Those silver eyes haunted me even when they were closed. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just done something that would change everything, that I'd crossed a line between worlds without realizing it, and there was no going back. Outside, something howled in response to the thunder. Not one voice, but many, calling through the storm. The wolf's ear twitched, but it didn't wake. I pulled a blanket around my shoulders and watched over my unexpected guest as dawn broke gray and cold through the rain-streaked windows, wondering what I'd really brought into this cabin and whether I'd just saved something or doomed us both. Chapter 3. Silver eyes and secrets. The wolf was gone when I woke. I jerked upright in the armchair, my neck protesting the awkward angle I'd slept in. Weak morning light filtered through the windows, illuminating the empty space where the wolf had been. Only the blood-stained bandages remained, discarded on the rug like evidence of a fever dream. My heart hammered against my ribs. The door was still locked from the inside. The windows were latched. How had something that size simply vanished? Then I heard it. Water running in the bathroom. I moved slowly, quietly, my pulse racing. The bathroom door was cracked open, steam curling out into the hallway. Through the gap I could see movement. Not a wolf. A man. I should have run. Should have grabbed something, anything as a weapon. But I was frozen, watching as a figure moved behind the frosted glass of the shower door. Tall, broad-shouldered, very much human. The water shut off. I stumbled backward, but not fast enough. The bathroom door opened fully, and he stepped out wearing nothing but a towel slung low around his hips. Water droplets trailing down a chest marked with fresh scars. 3 deep gashes across his left shoulder, exactly where the wolf had been wounded. My breath caught. He was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Sharp features, dark hair that fell damp across his forehead, and eyes. God, those eyes, silver. The same impossible silver I'd seen in the wolf's gaze, now staring at me from a face that was far too human and not human enough all at once. "You're awake," he said, his voice rough like gravel and honey mixed together. "You're—" I couldn't finish the sentence. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. "Not a wolf anymore," he finished, something that might have been amusement flickering across his face, though I suppose that's obvious. I backed up another step, my legs hitting the armchair. This isn't possible, and yet here we are. He moved toward me, and I noticed the slight hitch in his gait, still favoring that left side. "You saved my life last night. I saved a wolf. You're..." I gestured helplessly at him, at the very human form standing in Lila's grandmother's cabin like this was perfectly normal. What are you? His jaw tightened. I think you already know. Shifter, werewolf. The words from the journal flashed through my mind. The wolves in these mountains carry ancient magic, but knowing shifters existed, spending 2 years on the periphery of Marcus's world, was different from watching one transform in your bathroom. The pack territories don't extend this far, I said, my voice shaking. Marcus said, Marcus. Something dangerous flashed in those silver eyes. The beta's son. The one who broke your heart? Heat flooded my cheeks. How do you... I could smell his scent on you, and your pain. He took another step closer, and I should have moved away, but I couldn't. You were crying when you found me. Grieving. That's none of your business. You're right. He stopped a few feet away, and I realized just how large he was, easily 6'3", all muscle and controlled power even in human form. But you made it my business when you pulled me out of that storm, when you brought me into your home and tended my wounds. So I'll ask you again, what's a human doing in these mountains, running from a pack that never deserved her? The words hit too close to home. I'm not running. I'm healing. In a cabin that reeks of old magic and wolf warnings? His mouth quirked. Interesting choice, I bristled. I didn't exactly have many options. No, he agreed softly. I suppose you didn't. We stared at each other, tension crackling in the small space between us. I should have been terrified. This stranger, this creature, could kill me without effort. But the fear I expected wouldn't come. Instead, I felt something else. Recognition, maybe, or the echo of the connection I'd sensed when those silver eyes had first met mine in the storm. What happened to you? I asked finally. Those wounds. His expression shuddered. A disagreement. With something that has very large claws. With someone who thought they had a right to this territory. He glanced toward the window, toward the forest beyond. They were wrong. Are they gone? For now. His gaze returned to me, intense and measuring. But they'll come back. And when they do, you need to be far away from here. This is my cabin, I said, lifting my chin. I'm not leaving. Something that might have been respect flickered across his face. Brave or foolish. I haven't decided which yet. I saved your life, I reminded him. The least you could do is not insult me in my own home. You're right. He inclined his head slightly, a gesture that felt oddly formal. I'm Cale, and I owe you a debt I can't easily repay. Sarah, I said automatically. And I don't want repayment. I couldn't watch you die. His eyes softened. Why? The question hung between us, heavy with meaning I didn't want to examine. Why had I risked everything for a wolf I didn't know? Why had I felt that pull, that inexplicable need to help? I don't know, I whispered, but I did know. Or some part of me did. The same part that had felt so broken when Marcus said I'd never belong. The same part that had recognized something in those silver eyes that called to my very soul. Cale took a step closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. You should be afraid of me. I know. You should send me away. Probably, but you won't. It wasn't a question. I met his gaze. Those impossible silver eyes that had haunted me since the moment I'd seen them. No, I won't. Something passed between us. A current of understanding, of connection that defied logic. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently brushed a strand of hair from my face. His touch was warm, careful, as if I might shatter. You're not what I expected, he murmured. Neither are you. The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been a smile. Then he stepped back, breaking the spell. I should go. I've put you in enough danger already. Wait. I grabbed his arm without thinking, feeling the muscle tense under my palm. You're still hurt. You need rest, food, at least stay until what? His voice was rough. Until whoever tried to kill me last night comes back to finish the job. Until they realize a human helped me and decide you're a problem too. I'm not afraid. You should be. But his hand covered mine where it rested on his arm, warm and solid and real. The pack laws don't reach this far, Sarah. These mountains belong to something older. Something wilder, and I can't promise I can protect you from what's coming. Then teach me, I said, surprising myself. Teach me what I need to know to survive here. Kyle stared at me for a long moment, something unreadable moving behind those silver eyes. Then slowly he nodded. 3 days, he said. I'll stay 3 days. I'll teach you what I can and then I leave, for your own safety. Relief and something else, something warm and terrifying, flooded through me. 3 days, and Sarah? His grip on my hand tightened slightly. Don't trust me too much. I'm not the hero in this story. But as he finally released my hand and moved to gather his torn, bloodied clothes from where I'd left them by the fire, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was exactly what I needed, even if neither of us knew it yet. Chapter 4. Lessons in the Wild Kale refused to wear his shredded clothes, so I gave him an oversized flannel shirt I'd found in the cabin's closet, probably left by Lila's father decades ago. It stretched tight across his shoulders, and he left it unbuttoned, revealing those 3 healing scars that proved last night hadn't been a dream. I made coffee while he stood at the window, watching the forest with an intensity that made me wonder what he saw that I couldn't. They're still out there, he said without turning around. Watching. My hand trembled slightly as I poured. The ones who attacked you? They're scouts. He finally looked at me, and something in his expression made my stomach tighten. They know I'm here, and they know I'm not alone. Should I be worried? Yes. His honesty was brutal. But not yet. They won't approach while I'm here. They'll wait. For you to leave. For me to let my guard down. He crossed to the small kitchen table and sat, moving with that careful grace that suggested every motion was calculated, which is why we start your lessons now. I set a mug in front of him, then took the seat across. What exactly are you going to teach me in 3 days? How to survive. He wrapped his hands around the mug, and I noticed his knuckles were scarred. A fighter's hands. These mountains aren't like the pack territories, you know. There are no rules here, no councils or hierarchy, just predators and prey. And which one am I? His silver eyes met mine. That depends on what you learn. For the next hour, Cale talked and I listened. He told me about the old territories, the wild lands that existed before packs formed their structured societies. About shifters who rejected the confines of pack law and lived by older, more primal codes. About the magic that ran deeper here, in the roots and stones and bones of the mountains themselves. The journal, I said suddenly. Lila's grandmother wrote about silver-eyed wolves, about magic older than the packs. Cale's expression darkened. She was a wise woman. She understood what most humans don't, that there are things in this world that defy explanation. That some of us never belonged in cages, even golden ones. Is that what you are? One of the silver-eyed ones? We're called the Wanderers, he said quietly. Shifters without packs. We don't bend to alphas or follow pack law. We answer only to the wild itself. But you're alone. Something painful flashed across his face. Not by choice. There were others once, a family of sorts. But the packs don't like what they can't control. They hunted us. Killed most of us. His jaw tightened. The ones who attacked me last night? They're from the Northern Ridge Pack. They've been trying to claim these mountains for years, and I'm the last obstacle standing in their way. My chest ached at the loneliness in his voice. I'm sorry. Don't be. He stood abruptly, pushing away the sympathy like it burned. I chose this life. I chose freedom over belonging, and I'd make the same choice again. But I heard the lie in his words, or maybe not a lie, just a truth that didn't tell the whole story. He'd chosen freedom, yes, but not the loneliness that came with it. Just like I'd chosen to love Marcus, but not the rejection that followed. Show me, I said, standing. Show me how to protect myself. Cale studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Get dressed. Warm clothes. We're going into the forest. The woods were different in daylight, still beautiful, but with an edge of danger I hadn't noticed before. Cale moved through them like he was part of the landscape itself, silent and sure-footed, while I crashed along behind him like a bull in a china shop. "You're thinking too much," he called back without turning. "Stop trying to be quiet and just move. The forest will teach you its rhythm if you let it." I tried to do what he said, letting my feet find their own path. Slowly, impossibly, it started to work. The woods began to feel less like an obstacle course and more like home. We stopped in a clearing where sunlight broke through the canopy in golden shafts. Cale turned to face me, and I realized he'd led me at least 2 miles from the cabin without me noticing. "Lesson 1, he said. "Awareness. Most humans walk through the world blind and deaf to everything around them. You need to learn to see. I can see fine, really." He moved behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him at my back. "Then tell me, without looking, how many trees are in this clearing?" I started to turn, but his hands caught my shoulders, holding me still. "No, close your eyes, feel it," I obeyed, hyper-aware of his presence, his breath stirring my hair. "I don't know how—" "Stop thinking. Just be here. Let the forest speak to you." I took a breath, then another, and slowly, impossibly, I began to sense it. The way the air moved differently around solid objects, the subtle sounds of wind through branches, the living presence of the trees themselves. 7, I whispered. "There are 7 trees." 8, Cal corrected, but his voice held approval. But that was good. Very good for a first try. His hands were still on my shoulders, warm and grounding. I opened my eyes and found him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "How did you know?" I asked. "About Marcus." "About what happened?" "I told you. I could smell your grief." His thumbs brushed against my collarbones, a gesture that felt unconscious. But more than that, I recognized it. The pain of being told you're not enough, of being rejected by people who should have protected you. The packs hunted you. They feared us. Fear makes people cruel. His hands dropped away, and I felt the loss of his touch like a physical thing. Your Marcus feared what loving you would cost him, so he chose the easier path. "He wasn't mine," I said softly. "I see that now. No." Kyle's silver eyes held mine. "He wasn't. He was never going to be." The words should have hurt, but they didn't. They felt like truth, the kind that sets you free even as it breaks you. "What about you?" I asked. "Have you ever belonged to anyone?" Something vulnerable flickered across his face before he shuttered it. "Once. A long time ago." He turned away, staring into the forest. It didn't end well. I wanted to push, to ask more, but the set of his shoulders told me the subject was closed. Instead, I changed tactics. "What's lesson 2? He glanced back, surprised. Then that almost smile returned. "Defense. If you're going to stay in these mountains, you need to know how to fight." "Fight what? Other wolves?" "Whatever comes." He moved into a fighter's stance, loose and ready. "Come at me." "What?" "Attack me. However you want." I stared at him. "I'm not going to attack you. You're still injured. I'm a shifter. I heal fast." He gestured impatiently. "And you need to learn. So come at me, Sarah. Try to hurt me." I hesitated, then rushed forward, aiming a clumsy punch at his chest. He caught my wrist effortlessly, spinning me around until my back was pressed against his chest, his arm wrapped across my collarbone. Too obvious. Too slow. Again. We spent the next hour like that, me attacking, him correcting, both of us getting closer with each failed attempt. By the end, I was breathing hard, my body humming with exhaustion and something else. Something electric that sparked every time his hands guided mine into the right position, every time his body pressed against mine to demonstrate a hold. "Better," he said finally, stepping back. "You're stronger than you think." I looked at him, this dangerous stranger who was teaching me to be dangerous too, and felt something shift in my chest. Something that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet." His expression turned serious. "Tomorrow's lesson will be harder." "What's tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," Cale said, his silver eyes glinting. "I'd teach you about what I really am." And as we walked back to the cabin in the fading light, I couldn't tell if that was a promise or a warning. Chapter 5. The truth beneath the skin. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Silver, Kale's eyes in the darkness, watching, waiting. He'd taken the couch despite my protests about his injuries, leaving me the bedroom, but I could hear him moving restlessly, as unable to find peace as I was. Around midnight, I gave up and padded into the main room. He was standing at the window again, shirtless, moonlight painting silver across the scars on his shoulder. "Can't sleep either?" I asked softly. He didn't startle, didn't turn. The moon calls to us. Even when we're not shifting, we feel it, like a song just below hearing. I moved to stand beside him, following his gaze to where the nearly full moon hung heavy in the sky. "Is it hard?" "Controlling it." For pack wolves, yes, they're taught to fear their other half, to see the shift as something to be controlled and contained. He finally looked at me. "For wanderers, it's different. We don't fight what we are. We embrace it. That's what you want to show me tomorrow. Your wolf. If you're ready." His voice was carefully neutral. Some humans can't handle it. Seeing the shift, knowing what we truly are, it's one thing to know intellectually that werewolves exist. It's another to watch someone you... He stopped abruptly. "Someone I what?" My heart hammered against my ribs. Kyle's jaw worked. "Someone you've been alone with. Someone who's touched you. It changes things." The air between us felt charged, electric. I thought about the day, his hands on my shoulders, guiding my movements. The way our bodies had pressed together during training, the warmth of him that seemed to seep into my very bones. "I'm not afraid of you," I said. "You should be." But there was no heat in the words, only a tired resignation that made my chest ache. "Why do you keep saying that? You've had a dozen chances to hurt me. And you haven't. Yet." He turned to face me fully, and the moonlight turned his eyes to liquid silver. "You don't understand, Sarah. When we shift, especially during the full moon, the wolf is closer to the surface, stronger. And wolves are possessive creatures. Being near you, smelling your scent, feeling..." He stopped again, muscles tensing. It's taking everything I have to maintain control. Heat flooded through me at his words, at what he wasn't quite saying. "Feeling what?" "Don't." His voice dropped to something rough and dangerous. "Don't push this. Why not?" I stepped closer, drawn by something I didn't fully understand. "Because you're leaving in 2 days. Because you've decided we can't..." "What? Be friends? Trust each other?" "Because you're human," he growled, and I finally heard the strain in his voice. "Because you deserve someone who can give you a normal life. Because the last thing you need after that bastard broke your heart is to get tangled up with a wolf who has nothing to offer but danger and isolation. That's not your choice to make, isn't it?" His hand lifted, fingers brushing my cheek with devastating gentleness. "You saved my life, Sarah. The least I can do is save you from making a mistake you'll regret." "What if I don't regret it?" The words came out whispered, brave and terrified all at once. Kale's expression cracked, showing something raw and hungry beneath. "You don't know what you're saying. Then show me. Tomorrow. Show me everything you are and let me decide." We stood there, barely a breath apart, the moon watching through the window. I could see the war in his eyes, want and honor fighting for dominance. Finally, he stepped back, putting distance between us that felt like miles. "Tomorrow," he agreed, his voice rough. "But don't say I didn't warn you." He returned to the couch, and I to the bedroom, but sleep didn't come any easier. Because I could still feel the ghost of his touch on my cheek and hear the barely controlled hunger in his voice. And instead of fear, all I felt was anticipation. Dawn broke cold and clear. Kyle was already awake, dressed in the borrowed clothes that barely contained him, pacing the cabin like a caged animal. "Eat something," he said without preamble. "You'll need your strength." I forced down toast and coffee while he watched with an intensity that made my skin prickle. When I finished, he led me outside and into the forest, deeper than we'd gone before. We walked in silence, the tension from last night still hanging between us like morning mist. Finally, we reached a clearing I didn't recognize, larger than yesterday's, with a stream running through it and moss-covered stones arranged in a rough circle. It felt ancient, sacred, like something that existed outside of time. "This is a sacred place," Kale confirmed, as if reading my thoughts. The Wanderers used it for generations, for ceremonies, for shifts during the full moon. He turned to me, and I saw uncertainty in his face for the first time. Are you sure about this? Yes. My voice was steadier than I felt. He nodded slowly, then began to unbutton the flannel shirt. The shift is intense. Painful, some would say, though we barely feel it anymore. Don't try to run. Don't scream. My wolf will interpret it as fear or threat, and I can't promise I'll maintain enough control to stop him from giving chase. I won't run. The shirt fell away, revealing the scarred, muscled expanse of his chest and abdomen. Then his hands went to his belt, and I realized with a flush that he'd have to remove everything. There was nothing sexual about it, just practical necessity. But I couldn't help the heat that crept up my neck. If Cale noticed, he didn't comment. He simply finished undressing with efficient movements, utterly unself-conscious in his nakedness. The scars on his shoulder were already fading to pink lines, the healing accelerated beyond human capability. Remember, he said, meeting my eyes one last time with his silver gaze. Don't run. Then he dropped to his hands and knees and the shift began. I'd expected it to be quick, a Hollywood transformation of bones and sinew. But this was something else entirely. His body seemed to flow like water, muscles rippling and reforming, skin sprouting midnight fur. The sound was unsettling, wet and organic like the forest itself was remaking him. His face elongated, features rearranging into something lupine and wild, and through it all, those silver eyes never left mine. Within seconds that felt like hours, the man was gone. In his place stood the wolf from the storm, massive, powerful, beautiful in a way that stole my breath. But this time, I could see the intelligence clearly, the awareness, the human consciousness looking out through animal eyes. The wolf took a step toward me, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But I held my ground, remembering his words, remembering the trust we'd built. Cale, I whispered. The wolf's ears pricked forward, another step closer, then another, until he was right in front of me, so close I could feel the heat radiating from his fur. He was enormous, his head level with my chest, even on 4 legs. Slowly, carefully, I raised my hand. The wolf watched, utterly still. Then, with heartbreaking gentleness, he pressed his massive head into my palm. A sob caught in my throat. Because this wasn't a monster, wasn't something to fear. This was Cale, just in a different skin. And he was trusting me with this moment as much as I was trusting him. I buried my fingers in his fur, and the wolf made a sound, something between a rumble and a purr that I felt in my bones. He moved closer, pressing his side against me, and I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the midnight fur. You're beautiful, I whispered against his fur. Both of you. The wolf shuddered, and when I pulled back to look at his face, those silver eyes were almost human in their emotion. And I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that I was in trouble, because 2 days wasn't going to be enough. Not even close. Chapter 6. When shadows circle, the wolf stayed with me for hours. We sat by the stream in the sacred clearing, and I talked about Marcus, about feeling like I never belonged anywhere, about the loneliness that had carved out a hollow space in my chest long before the rejection. And the wolf listened with those intelligent silver eyes, occasionally pressing his head against my shoulder as if to say, I understand. Because he did understand, maybe better than anyone. When Cale finally shifted back, a process I politely turned away from, though I heard every visceral second, he dressed in silence. The air between us felt different now, charged with something neither of us was quite ready to name. You didn't run, he said finally, his voice rough. I told you I wouldn't. Most humans would have. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Even pack-born humans who grow up around shifters sometimes can't handle seeing the transformation up close. I'm not most humans. No. His hand found mine, fingers threading through mine with careful deliberacy. You're really not. We stood like that as the sun climbed higher, hands clasped, neither of us willing to break the connection. Finally, reluctantly, Cale pulled away. We should head back. I need to check the perimeter. Make sure... He stopped abruptly, his entire body going rigid. Cale? Quiet. His voice dropped to something barely audible. Don't move. Then I smelled it. Smoke. Faint but unmistakable, drifting through the trees. The cabin, I whispered, horror flooding through me. Cale was already moving, shifting mid-stride into his wolf form with a fluid grace that should have been impossible. He took off through the forest, and I ran after him, branches tearing at my clothes, my lungs burning. We burst through the tree line to find the cabin still standing, but surrounded. 5 wolves, each nearly as large as Cale, circled the structure. Even from a distance, I could see they were different from him. Their eyes were gold, not silver, and they moved with military precision rather than Cale's wild freedom. Pack wolves. The Northern Ridge Hunters. Cale's growl was a sound from nightmares, deep and resonant and filled with barely contained violence. The other wolves turned as one, and I saw the moment they registered my presence. One of them, a gray wolf with a scarred muzzle, fixed its golden eyes on me with unmistakable intent. Then everything happened at once. Kyle launched himself at the gray wolf with savage fury, meeting him mid-leap in a collision of fur and fangs. The clearing exploded into chaos, snarls and snaps and the terrible sound of teeth meeting flesh. 2 more wolves broke away from the cabin, circling toward me. Sarah, run! Cale's voice came from the wolf's throat. Impossible, but I heard it clearly. Get inside! I ran, not away, but toward the cabin, my training kicking in. Don't panic! Move with purpose. The 2 wolves gave chase, their paws thundering behind me. I made it to the porch and threw myself through the door, slamming it shut. Immediately, something heavy crashed against it. Then again, the wood groaned but held. Through the window, I could see Kyle fighting like something possessed. 1 wolf already lying motionless, another limping away. But there were still 3 more, and he was already bleeding from a dozen wounds. He was going to die protecting me. The thought was ice water in my veins. I couldn't let that happen. Wouldn't. I grabbed the hunting rifle Lila's father had left mounted over the fireplace, old but well-maintained. I'd learned to shoot as a teenager, though I'd never aimed at anything that wasn't a paper target. My hands shook as I loaded it, the door splintered. A wolf's head pushed through, jaws snapping. I didn't think, just raised the rifle and fired. The shot went wide, but the sound was enough. The wolf yelped and retreated. Through the broken door, I could see the fight still raging. Cale had taken down another wolf, but the remaining 2 were coordinating their attacks, wearing him down. The gray wolf, clearly the alpha of this hunting pack, had him pinned. I fired again. This time I didn't miss. The bullet caught the gray wolf in the shoulder, and he released Kyle with a howl of pain and rage. His golden eyes found me through the shattered doorway, and the hatred in them was palpable. Then something impossible happened. The gray wolf began to shift, bones cracking and reforming until a man stood where the animal had been, naked, bleeding, but terrifyingly human. He was older than Kyle, maybe mid-40s, with scars that told stories of 100 fights. You dare, he snarled, his voice like gravel. A human dares to interfere in pack business? Cale shifted as well, putting himself between me and the other alpha. Blood ran from cuts across his chest and arms, but he stood firm. She's under my protection. Leave, now. Your protection? The gray wolf man laughed, the sound cruel. You're a wanderer. You have no right to claim anything. Not even territory. These mountains belong to the Northern Ridge Pack now. These mountains belong to no one. Cale's voice was deadly calm. They're wild lands. Sacred lands, and you've just violated them with violence. We came for you. The human is just collateral damage. The alpha's eyes slid to me, calculating. Though perhaps she's more than that. I can smell it on you. The bond forming. How touching. The last wanderer has found himself a mate. Mate. The word hung in the air like a bomb. She's nothing to me, Kyle lied, but even I could hear the falseness. Just someone who was foolish enough to help an injured wolf. Is that why you're bleeding for her? The alpha gestured to his remaining wolf, who had shifted back as well, a younger man with cold eyes. Kill the wanderer. Take the girl. Let's see how much nothing she really is. They moved as one, and I raised the rifle again. But Cale was faster. He shifted mid-charge, meeting them with a fury I hadn't seen before. This wasn't just fighting. This was desperate, primal protection. I fired twice more, aiming for legs, for shoulders, anywhere that wouldn't kill but would stop them. One shot found its mark. The younger wolf went down, and the alpha hesitated. Call them off. Cale's human voice came from the wolf again. That impossible trick. Or I stop holding back. The alpha looked between Cale and me, something like respect flickering in his expression. This isn't over, Wanderer. The pack wants these mountains. One wolf and a human with a rifle won't stop us. Maybe not. Cale's voice was steady despite his wounds. But we'll make you bleed for every inch. The alpha studied us for another long moment, then jerked his head at his injured companion. The two remaining wolves limped into the forest, leaving their dead behind. Cale held his wolf form until they were gone, then collapsed. Cale! I dropped the rifle and ran to him, falling to my knees beside where he'd shifted back to human. Blood soaked his skin, so much blood. Oh God, Cale, stay with me. His silver eyes found mine, hazy with pain. Told you. You should have been afraid. Shut up. Tears streamed down my face as I pressed my hands against the worst of his wounds. Just shut up and let me help you. His hand caught mine, weak but determined. Sarah, what he said, about the bond, later. My voice broke. You can explain later. Right now you need to live. He smiled. Actually smiled, even as his eyes started to close. Bossy. I like that. Then he was unconscious, and I was alone with a dying wolf man, and the terrible knowledge that somewhere in the last 3 days, he'd become the most important thing in my world. Chapter 7. Healing Wounds. Breaking Walls. I'd never been so scared in my entire life. Cale was too heavy to move, so I worked where he'd fallen, dragging supplies from the cabin, trying to remember everything I'd learned about trauma care. His wounds were deep, vicious, and bleeding far too much. But even as I watched, some of the smaller cuts began to close, his shifter healing working overtime. Come on, I whispered, pressing gauze against a gash on his ribs. Don't you dare give up. You promised me 3 days, and I'm holding you to it. His only response was shallow breathing. I worked through the afternoon, cleaning and bandaging, using every bit of first aid knowledge I possessed. At some point I realized I was talking to him, rambling about everything and nothing, about how I'd always wanted to be brave but never felt like I was, about how my grandmother used to say that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it, about how he'd shown me I was stronger than I believed. You can't die, I said, my voice cracking, because I need you to teach me that last lesson. And because... I stopped, the words catching in my throat, because I'm not ready to lose you yet. As dusk fell, his breathing finally steadied. The bleeding had stopped, and his color was better. I covered him with blankets and built up the fire, then collapsed beside him, exhausted and terrified and relieved all at once. His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers curling weakly around my palm. Sarah, he breathed, barely audible. I'm here. I squeezed his hand. Rest. You need to heal. They'll come back. His eyes opened, still that impossible silver, but clouded with pain. You have to leave tonight. Take my truck. Keys in my jacket. I'm not leaving you. You have to. He tried to sit up and failed, falling back with a grunt of pain. The alpha. He saw the bond. He knows what you mean to me. They'll use you to get to me. Then let them come. I said it with more confidence than I felt. I have the rifle. I'm not completely helpless. You're human. His voice was anguished. You shouldn't have to fight my battles. Maybe not. But I'm choosing to anyway. I brushed hair back from his forehead, and he leaned into the touch like a man starved for gentleness. You've been alone for so long, Cale. Fighting alone. Running alone. Maybe it's time to let someone stand with you. His eyes searched mine, and I saw the moment his walls began to crack. Why? Why would you risk this? You barely know me, don't I challenged softly. I've seen you at your most vulnerable. I've watched you teach with patience, fight with courage, and try so damn hard to protect me even when it costs you everything. I know you're honorable and fierce and so scared of letting anyone close that you'd rather die alone than ask for help. Sarah, and that Alpha was right, wasn't he? About the bond. My heart hammered, but I pressed forward. I don't fully understand it, but I feel it. This pull between us, like I was supposed to find you in that storm. Like everything that happened with Marcus was just pushing me toward where I needed to be. Cale's jaw clenched. The mate bond isn't a fairy tale. It's real, and it's powerful, and it's complicated. If it's forming between us... He stopped, seeming to wrestle with the words. It means my wolf has chosen you, recognized you as mine, and once that happens, it's almost impossible to break. Do you want to break it? The question hung between us, heavy with meaning. What I want doesn't matter, he said finally. You deserve a choice, a real choice, not something forced on you by supernatural instinct. Then let me choose. I moved closer, until our faces were inches apart. I choose this. I choose you, even knowing it's dangerous, even knowing you're planning to leave, even knowing everything might fall apart. I choose now, this moment, with you. Something in his expression shattered. You're going to wreck me, he whispered. Good. You wrecked me first. He pulled me down to him despite his injuries, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was desperate and gentle and inevitable all at once. It felt like coming home and falling off a cliff, terrifying and perfect and absolutely right. His hand cupped the back of my head, holding me like I was precious, like I was his, and I kissed him back with everything I had. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, his eyes were clearer than they'd been since the fight. I'm not leaving in 2 days, he said. Good. I'm probably going to get you killed. You can try. I smiled despite everything, but I'm tougher than I look. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Yeah, you really are. We stayed like that through the night, me curled against his uninjured side, his arm wrapped around me, both of us listening to the forest and each other's breathing. The wolves might come back, the pack might wage war, everything might fall apart tomorrow. But tonight, we had this. I woke to find Cale already up, moving stiffly but on his feet. The wounds from yesterday had faded to pink scars, his healing even faster than I'd expected. He was standing at the window again, but this time his expression was thoughtful rather than guarded. They left markers, he said as I joined him. Pack signs on the trees. Claiming the territory, what does that mean? It means they're serious. They'll bring more wolves next time, maybe the whole pack. He turned to me and I saw determination in his silver eyes, which is why we need to do something they won't expect. What? We claim the territory first, together. He took my hands. There's a ritual, an old one, from before the pack's organized. If we perform it in the sacred clearing, it creates a bond between the land and those who claim it. Protection magic woven into the earth itself. But I'm human. How can I claim territory? You're not just human anymore. His voice was soft. Not since the bond started forming. My wolf recognizes you as pack, as mate. And in the old ways, that's enough. Pack. Mate. The words should have terrified me. A week ago they would have. But now, with Cale's hands warm in mine and his silver eyes holding nothing but honesty, they felt like promise. What does the ritual involve? Blood magic? Nothing dark? He added quickly at my expression. Just a mingling. My blood and yours, given freely to the land. A vow spoken under the moon. And then? He hesitated. Then what? Then we seal it. The bond completes between us and the land. It's binding, Sarah. Once it's done, we're connected. Truly mated. If one of us dies, the other feels it. If we're apart too long, it causes physical pain. There's no going back. I should have asked for time to think. Should have questioned whether this was too fast, too much. But I'd spent 2 years loving someone who never fully chose me. Who kept me at arm's length while deciding if I was worth the risk. Cale was offering me everything. All of him, no reservations. When? I asked. He blinked, surprised. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. And it was true. Despite the danger, despite everything, this felt right in a way nothing else ever had. When do we do it? Tonight. Under the full moon. His hands tightened on mine. But Sarah, you need to understand. Once we do this, the Northern Ridge Pack will see it as a declaration of war. They'll come with everything they have. Then we'd better be ready. A slow smile spread across his face, the first real, unguarded smile I'd seen from him. It transformed him, making him look younger, almost boyish. "You're incredible," he said. "I know." I grinned back. "Now teach me this ritual so we can tell those pack wolves exactly where they can shove their territory claims." And as Kale pulled me close, laughing against my hair, I knew that whatever came next, war or peace, danger or safety, we'd face it together, the way it was always meant to be. Chapter 8. Under the full moon. The day passed in a strange mixture of preparation and anticipation. Kale taught me the words I'd need to speak, ancient phrases in a language that felt old on my tongue, like the forest itself was teaching me. He explained the ritual with careful detail, his voice steady, but his eyes holding something deeper. Hunger, maybe, or hope. "The bond will change you," he said as evening approached. "Not physically, you'll still be human, but you'll feel things more intensely. You'll be able to sense me, even when we're apart. Know if I'm hurt or in danger. And you'll feel the same about me? I already do." His hand cupped my cheek. "The bond started forming the moment you touched me in that storm. My wolf knew before I did, before either of us did." I leaned into his touch, marveling at how natural it felt. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," he admitted. "I've been alone for so long, Sarah. 5 years since the packs killed my family. 5 years of keeping everyone at a distance because getting close meant giving them a weapon to use against me." His thumb stroked across my cheekbone. "But you broke through every defense I had, and now I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of being vulnerable." My heart clenched. "You won't lose me. Promise me something." His silver eyes were intense. "If tonight goes wrong, if the pack comes during the ritual, if something happens to me, you run. You take my truck and you drive until you hit a city and you don't look back. Kale, promise me." His voice was fierce. "I can face anything except knowing you died because of me." I wanted to argue, to tell him I'd never abandon him, but I saw the desperation in his face and knew he needed this. "I promise." The lie tasted bitter, but it eased something in him. As the sun set, we gathered what we needed: a silver knife from Lila's grandmother's collection, cloth for binding, herbs that Kale identified from the forest. He moved with ritualistic precision, and I realized this wasn't just magic to him. This was sacred, a piece of his heritage, his lost family, his identity as a wanderer. "My mother performed this ritual with my father," he said quietly as we prepared. "I was young, but I remember it. The way the forest came alive around them. The way their love became something you could almost touch." He paused. "They were killed 2 years later, but they died together, bonded. And even at the end, I don't think either of them regretted it." "I won't regret it either," I said firmly. His eyes met mine, and I saw belief there. Trust. When the full moon finally rose, heavy and silver in the night sky, we walked to the sacred clearing. The forest seemed to watch us, branches bending in a wind I couldn't quite feel. The ancient stones glowed faintly in the moonlight, arranged in their circle like silent witnesses to ceremonies spanning centuries. Kyle led me to the center, to a flat stone that bore symbols worn smooth by time. His hands shook slightly as he set down the knife and herbs. "Last chance," he said, though his voice held no real hope I'd take it. "Once we start, there's no stopping until it's complete." "I'm not going anywhere." He nodded, then began to strip off his shirt. I did the same, the night air cool against my skin. We stood facing each other in the moonlight, and the intimacy of it stole my breath. Not sexual, but something deeper. Spiritual, maybe. Two souls preparing to become one. Kale picked up the knife, and I saw his hand was steady now. Purposeful. "Repeat after me," he said, then spoke words in that ancient language. I echoed them, feeling the weight of each syllable. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening. He drew the blade across his palm, blood welling dark against his skin. Then he offered me the knife. I didn't hesitate. The cut stung, but I welcomed it. This was my choice. my claim on him in this wild place that had become home. He pressed his bleeding palm to mine, and the moment our blood touched, power surged through me like lightning. I gasped, my knees buckling, but Cale's free arm wrapped around my waist, holding me steady. "I feel you," I breathed, awed, because suddenly I could, a presence in my mind that was distinctly him. His strength, his fierceness, his careful tenderness, all of it flowing into me like a river finding its course. "And I feel you," he whispered against my hair. "Your courage, your heart. God, Sarah, you're so bright it burns." We spoke the rest of the ritual together, our voices blending as our blood mixed, dripping onto the stone beneath us. The symbols carved there began to glow. Faint at first, then stronger, pulsing in time with our heartbeats. The forest came alive. Wind whipped through the clearing, carrying the scent of pine and earth and ancient magic. The stones hummed with power, and I felt the land itself respond to our claim, accepting us. "Protecting us, now," Cale said, his voice rough. "We seal it." He kissed me with our palms still pressed together, our blood mingling between us. This kiss was different from the first, deeper, more primal, charged with the magic coursing through us both. I felt his wolf rise to the surface, felt my own humanity reach out to meet it, and somehow, impossibly, they merged. The bond snapped into place like a lock finding its key. I cried out against his mouth, overwhelmed by the rush of sensation. I could feel everything, his heartbeat matching mine, his relief and joy and fierce possessive love flooding through the connection. And he could feel mine too, every emotion laid bare between us. "Mine," he growled, the word half human, half wolf. "Yours," I agreed, breathless. "And you're mine." Always. The magic settled around us like a blanket, warm and protective. I could feel it now, the connection to this land, to these mountains. They recognized us as their own. Any wolf who tried to claim this territory now would have to face not just us, but the ancient power we'd awakened. We sank to our knees together, still holding each other, still joined. Cale's forehead pressed against mine, his breathing ragged. "I love you," he said, the words raw and honest. I should have said it sooner, but I love you, Sarah. Tears streamed down my face. "I love you too." We stayed like that as the moon climbed higher. Two souls bound together by blood and choice and magic older than memory. I felt it the moment they arrived. Through the bond, I sensed Cale's sudden alertness, the way his body tensed. Then I heard them too, howls in the distance growing closer. Many howls, more than 5. The Northern Ridge Pack had come. Cale pulled back, his eyes meeting mine with grim determination. They felt it. The ritual. They know what we've done. Then let's show them exactly what they're up against. He smiled, fierce and proud and full of love. That's my mate. Together we rose to face the approaching threat. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever came next, we'd survive it. Because we weren't alone anymore. We were pack. We were mated. We were home, and we would fight like hell to keep it. Chapter 9. The stand, they emerged from the tree line like shadows given form. At least a dozen wolves, maybe more. The gray alpha from before led them, his golden eyes fixed on us with cold calculation. Even in wolf form, I could see the anger radiating from him. Kyle shifted instantly, placing his massive black form between me and the advancing pack. Through our new bond, I felt his protective fury like it was my own, a blazing certainty that he'd die before letting them touch me. Not happening. I thought fiercely, and felt his surprise ripple through the connection. We could communicate. The bond allowed it. "Sarah, stay back. Please, we're in this together. Remember?" The alpha shifted, bones cracking as he became human again. The rest of his pack remained wolves, a clear show of force. He stood naked and unashamed, his scarred body a testament to decades of violence. "Wanderer," he said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "You've made a grave mistake." Kyle shifted as well, and I quickly averted my eyes, giving him privacy even as I handed him his jeans from where we'd left our clothes. He dressed quickly, never taking his attention off the alpha. "The only mistake was yours, Darius," Cale said, his voice steady. "You came into sacred lands with violence. You tried to kill me on territory that isn't yours to claim. These mountains belong to the strongest pack." Darius gestured to his wolves. "And you're just one wanderer with a human pet." "She's not a pet." Kyle's voice dropped to something dangerous. "She's my mate, and this land has accepted our claim. You felt the ritual. You know what it means." Murmurs rippled through the pack wolves, and I saw uncertainty flicker across several faces. Whatever we'd done tonight, it had power they recognized. "An abomination," Darius spat. "Mating with a human. Your ancestors would be ashamed." "My ancestors celebrated the bond between humans and wolves," Kyle countered. "Before the packs decided purity was more important than connection. Before they started hunting those of us who refused to conform. Pretty words won't save you." Darius took a step forward. "Last chance, Wanderer. Renounce the bond. Leave these mountains. We might let you live." I felt Cale's amusement through the bond before he spoke. "And if I refuse? Then we kill you both and take what should have been ours all along." "You can try." Kyle's smile was all teeth. "But you should know. When you agreed to come onto land we've claimed through blood ritual, you agreed to face its protectors." "All of them," Darius frowned. "There are only 2 of you." "Are there?" As if in answer, the forest itself seemed to shift. The ancient stones began to glow again, brighter than before. The wind picked up, howling through the trees with voices that almost sounded like words, and the ground beneath our feet thrummed with power. Through the bond, I felt Cale drawing on the ritual's magic, channeling the land's protection. And somehow, impossibly, I felt it too. The connection to these mountains, to every tree and stone and blade of grass. We'd claimed this place, and it had claimed us back. "This is sacred ground," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "And you're trespassing." Darius's eyes snapped to me, and I saw genuine surprise there. "The human speaks. How cute. The human has a name." I stepped up beside Cale, ignoring his protective growl through the bond. "It's Sarah, and I'm not just human anymore. I'm pack. I'm mate, and I'm telling you to leave our territory before someone gets hurt." Brave words from prey. But Darius's confidence had cracked. I could see it in the way his eyes flicked between us and the glowing stones. The way his wolves shifted nervously. "I'm not prey," I said quietly. "Not anymore." Kyle's hand found mine, and the moment we touched, power surged through both of us. The bond amplified it, the ritual magic responding to our unity. The stones blazed brighter, and the very air seemed to shimmer with protective energy. "Last warning," Cale said. "Leave, now, or face the consequences of violating sacred ground." Darius's face twisted with rage. "Attack!" The pack surged forward as one, and slammed into an invisible barrier. Wolves yelped and fell back, stunned. The air shimmered where they'd hit it, revealing a dome of translucent energy surrounding the entire clearing. The ancient stones pulsed at its edges, anchoring the protection. "What?" Darius stared at the barrier, then at us. "This isn't possible. Humans can't channel pack magic." "She's not channeling pack magic," Cale said, and I heard pride in his voice. "She's channeling something older. Wild magic. The kind your precious packs forgot how to use when they built their hierarchy and their rules." Through the bond, I felt him guiding me, showing me how to sense the magic, how to strengthen it. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced, raw and ancient and utterly natural. This was what Lila's grandmother had written about. The old power that existed before alphas and territories, when wolves and humans had lived in balance. "You want this land?" I called out, surprised by my own boldness. "Then prove you're worthy of it. Face us in fair combat, one-on-one, or admit you're too scared to fight without your pack behind you." Darius's eyes narrowed. "You challenge me? A human challenges an alpha? A mated pair challenges a trespasser," Cale corrected. "Old law, Darius. You know it as well as I do. If you defeat us in honorable combat, the land releases its claim. But if we win, you and your pack leave these mountains forever." The pack wolves were watching now, watching their alpha with something that might have been doubt. This was a test, not just of strength but of honor, And Darius had built his power on intimidation, not fair fights. Fine. Darius's voice was tight with fury. But when I kill your mate in front of you, Wanderer, remember that you offered her up. You won't touch her. Cale's certainty was absolute. She's stronger than you think, am I? I thought through the bond, suddenly terrified. You shot a wolf while protecting me. You pulled me from a storm. You chose to bind yourself to a wanderer despite knowing it meant war. His mental voice was warm, sure. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and I'll be right there with you. Always. The barrier lowered, responding to our agreement. Darius stepped into the circle, cracking his knuckles. Behind him, his pack watched with eager eyes. Cale moved to stand beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Together? Always. Darius shifted, becoming wolf in a blur of motion. Massive, battle-scarred, and deadly. He lunged, not at Cale, but at me. Testing. Trying to break our unity by going for the weaker target. But I wasn't weak anymore. I dropped and rolled, muscle memory from Cale's training kicking in. He'd taught me to move with the forest's rhythm, and now, bonded to this land, it was like the earth itself guided my feet. I came up with a fallen branch in my hands, swinging it hard into Darius's flank. He yelped and spun toward me, but Cale was already there. He shifted mid-leap, his black wolf form slamming into Darius with devastating force. They rolled, snarling and snapping, and I felt every impact through the bond like it was my own body taking the hits. But I also felt Cale's strategy. His confidence, his absolute certainty that we'd win, because we weren't fighting as individuals anymore. We were fighting as one. Darius broke away from Cale and charged me again. This time I stood my ground. Through the bond, I felt Kyle's timing, knew exactly when he'd strike. At the last second, I dove left, and Cale's jaws closed on Darius's shoulder, exactly where I'd known he'd be. The gray alpha howled in pain and rage. He threw Cale off and backed up, blood staining his fur, golden eyes wide with something that might have been fear. This isn't possible. He snarled in his human voice, though his body remained wolf. Humans don't fight like this. She's not just human, Cale said, shifting back to stand beside me. She's pack. She's land-bonded. She's everything you're too blind to understand. Darius looked between us, then at his pack. I saw the moment he realized he couldn't win. Not against both of us. Not against our unity. This isn't over, he said. Yes, Cale replied softly. It is. And somehow Darius knew he was right. He shifted back to human form and gestured sharply to his pack. We leave. But mark my words, Wanderer. The council will hear of this. They won't let you keep these mountains. Let them come. Cale's arm wrapped around my waist. We'll be waiting. The pack melted back into the forest, leaving us alone in the sacred clearing. The moment they were gone, my legs gave out. Cale caught me, lowering us both to the ground. You were amazing, he breathed. I was terrified. I know. He kissed my forehead. But you fought anyway. That's what makes you incredible. I looked up at the moon, still full and bright above us, and felt the rightness of everything settle into my bones. This land, this man, this new life I'd claimed. What happens now? I asked. Cale smiled. Now we live. We protect what's ours. We build something new. Together. Always together. And as we sat in the sacred clearing, bloodied but victorious, bonded and whole, I knew that somehow, impossibly, I'd found exactly where I belonged. Chapter 10. Aftermath. The first rays of dawn painted the clearing in shades of amber and gold, but Sarah barely noticed. She sat on the porch steps of the cabin, her body aching in places she didn't know could ache, watching as the last traces of the protective barrier shimmered and faded like morning mist. Kyle stood at the edge of the tree line, his back to her, shoulders tense despite their victory. She could feel him through the bond, a mixture of pride, relief, and something darker. Worry, perhaps, or guilt. You should be resting, he said without turning around, and Sarah felt a flutter of warmth at how attuned they'd become. He'd sensed her gaze on him. So should you. She rose, wincing as her muscles protested. The fight had taken more out of her than she'd realized. During the battle, adrenaline and the bond's power had made her feel invincible. Now, in the quiet morning after, she felt distinctly mortal. Cale finally turned, and her breath caught. His face was drawn, shadows beneath his eyes, and a healing cut traced along his jaw, but it was his eyes that held her. Storm gray and haunted. "You could have been killed," he said quietly, crossing the clearing toward her. "When you stepped forward to challenge Darius, He broke off, jaw clenching. "But I wasn't." Sarah reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. The contact sent a gentle pulse of warmth through the bond, soothing some of the jagged edges of his fear. "We won, Cale, together." Together. He repeated the word like a prayer, or maybe a vow. His thumb traced circles on her palm, a gesture that was becoming familiar, comforting. "I've been alone for so long, I forgot what that word really meant." Sarah tugged him toward the porch, settling them both on the steps. The morning was cool, and she leaned into his warmth naturally, feeling his arm come around her shoulders. For a moment they simply sat in silence, watching the forest wake around them. "Tell me about them," she said softly. "Your old pack, before." She felt him stiffen, then deliberately relax. Through the bond, she could sense him wrestling with old pain, deciding how much to share. "We were strong," he began finally. "Not the largest pack, but there was real connection, real loyalty. My father led with honor." His voice grew distant, remembering. Darius was young then, ambitious. He challenged for leadership 3 times and lost each time. The 4th challenge, he trailed off. Sarah squeezed his hand, waiting. The 4th time, he didn't fight fair. Brought allies who attacked from the shadows during the challenge. My father fell and Darius claimed it was honorable victory. Most of the pack knew better, but they were afraid. Those who spoke against him were exiled or worse, and you. I was given a choice: swear loyalty to the wolf who murdered my father or become wanderer. I chose exile. The word was heavy with old grief. I thought I'd made peace with that choice, but seeing him yesterday, feeling how much I've missed having a pack. You have a pack now, Sarah said firmly. Maybe it's just the 2 of us, but we're a pack. And this land recognizes it. You felt how it responded during the fight. Cale turned to look at her, something soft and wondering in his expression. When did you become so certain? Yesterday morning you were terrified of all this. Yesterday morning I was still thinking like a human who had stumbled into a world she didn't understand. Sarah smiled slightly. Now I'm thinking like someone who belongs here. There's a difference. The bond changed you. No. She shook her head. The bond revealed what was already there. I've been searching for where I fit for so long, Kyle. Every relationship I had before felt like trying to squeeze myself into a space too small. But this... She gestured between them, around them at the forest. This feels like coming home. Kyle cupped her face in his hands, his touch achingly gentle despite the warrior's strength in those fingers. You terrify me, he admitted. The depth of what I feel for you terrifies me. I've survived alone for years by not caring too much, not letting anyone close enough to hurt me. And then you appeared, and every wall I built came crashing down. Good, Sarah whispered, leaning her forehead against his. I don't want your walls. I want you, all of you, even the scared parts. His kiss was soft, reverent, but she could feel the hunger beneath it, the need he was holding back. When they parted, his eyes had darkened to smoke. There's still the council to deal with, he said, clearly trying to ground himself in practicality. Darius won't let this go. He'll petition them, claim we broke laws, that a human shifter bond is forbidden or unnatural. Is it? Sarah asked. Forbidden, I mean. Not explicitly, but it's rare enough to be controversial. The council is old-fashioned. They value tradition, pure bloodlines. A wanderer claiming land with a human mate will raise questions. Then we'll answer them. Sarah stood, pulling him up with her. Together, remember? I'm done running from who I am, and I'm not about to let some council take away what we've found. Cale's expression shifted from worried to something almost like awe. You're serious? You're ready to stand before the Shifter Council and defend our bond, are you not? I am. Gods, I am. He pulled her close, crushing her against his chest. She could hear his heart racing, feel the emotion rolling through him in waves. I just keep expecting you to realize how complicated this will be, how much you're giving up to be with me. Sarah pulled back enough to meet his eyes. What am I giving up? An apartment I barely afforded? A job that never fulfilled me? Friends who were really just acquaintances? Kale, I'm not giving up anything. I'm gaining everything. The sun had fully risen now, bathing them in golden light. Somewhere in the forest, a bird sang its morning song. The cabin behind them stood solid and waiting, full of possibility. When does the council convene? Sarah asked. 3 days. They meet at the full moon. Then we have 3 days to prepare. She squeezed his hand. And 3 days to just be us, to figure out what our life looks like now. Kyle smiled finally, and it transformed his face. 3 days, he agreed. Starting with you teaching me how you take your coffee, because I realized during the fight that I don't even know that. Sarah laughed, the sound bright and free. 2 sugars, lots of cream. Very human of me. Perfect, Kyle said, guiding her toward the cabin door. Absolutely perfect.